Hello, and welcome to 42 North, the podcast where we interview passionate people about their interests, hobbies, and life. We are your hosts, Matt Lang.
And Joel Blackburn.
And welcome back. This is episode 4. Something I realized yesterday. Very Merry Christmas to you all. When this drops, it'll be the first week of December. That's kind of crazy. We're not even quite thinking about Thanksgiving yet.
It's too fast, yeah.
On the date of recording. But Joel, how we doing? Nothing has happened in your life since the last recording.
Sure. We're doing pretty good. Life has been busy. College has been pretty good. There was like an engagement that happened. Got engaged to Lydia. So if any of you guys listened to the last episode, I had mentioned briefly that I was making a ring box, and so that was the point of that. A little bit, I think it was about a week after that, I proposed, and Lydia said yes, and so that happened. That's pretty fun. Otherwise, just college life, living life, trying to get through classes.
Well, a heartfelt congratulations to you both. That is super exciting.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Anything in your life, dude?
Yeah, I just got back from a trip from Tennessee. Got to partner with a ministry doing hurricane relief that we partnered with the organization a couple of years ago. So getting to reconnect with them was amazing.
And what organization was that?
IDES, International Disaster Emergency Service.
Okay.
So it was good. It was hard. It was really sobering to go down and see, just a few weeks after all the flooding and all the destruction, just how fresh everything still was as far as the destruction. And so it was, it was sobering, but it was really beautiful to connect with those people and just get to work alongside them and connect with them and in some cases even help them process a little bit of what had happened. And so that was really beautiful to be a part of. So
definitely that
was the big one.
Dang,
recently.
Yeah.
So,
okay.
Kind of settling back into the daily grind at this point. So, that's about where we're at. So,
okay.
Yeah.
That's a pretty good little catch up. That whole trip to Tennessee, dude. Dang. Yeah. That's insane.
Yeah. Good week-long trip.
Well, I would say enough about us.
Yeah.
So as we mentioned on our last episode, this is the first one with our first ever guest. So it is my pleasure to introduce, I can't do English today, my hopefully soon to be father-in-law, Ben Andrews.
Welcome, Ben.
Hello.
So Ben is somebody that's very near and dear to our hearts. He in the campus ministry that both Joel and I have been a part of. Ben has been an incredible mentor figure, and as you mentioned, also future and father-in-law for you. So
quite crazy.
It's exciting.
We're excited.
Yeah.
Thanks, guys. That's really kind of you.
Absolutely.
So welcome on. You want to just tell us a little bit about yourself, who you are, where you came from, just a nice little snippet of however deep you want to go into of Ben Andrews.
Yeah, thanks. I think you said it well. I am married. I've got 4 kids. I had many jobs when I was young, and I think everybody thought maybe I couldn't figure out what I would want to do with my life, and spent the last 27 years doing campus ministry and can't see doing anything different. So, I like getting to work with college students. Most importantly, really enjoy just when we kind of get in the dirt and in each other's lives and wrestle with kind of what God has for each of us. And that's kind of me.
Yeah. So what led you to campus ministry in the first place?
That is probably a longer answer than we've got time for.
Fair enough.
The short story would have been that actually I was introduced to that when I was a kid.
Okay.
But yeah, my parents actually, that was pretty significant in their life, and so it was significant in my childhood. But, okay, let me do that, because when other people when other like young kids wanted to be like a fireman or, I don't know, police officer or, an astronaut, I wanted to be a campus minister, which always seemed kind of strange. But that's what, that's like a 10-year-old dream. So those apparently grow up. And but that came back around while I was a student at Western, and it's kind of a cool opportunity to be able to fulfill a dream. So
Yeah, absolutely.
Crazy how God sort of works dreams in that way.
yeah.
So, Ben, as you know, on this podcast, we love to dive into the different passions and experiences of people. And one of the really niche things that you are proficient at would be just the world of sailboating. So tell us about that. Where did the interest first come from for you?
Yeah.
Yeah, and full disclosure, I've got other friends that would know so much more in that, but people know me as having a desire, and that's kind of you to say proficient. But yeah, kind of a weird start. I had a summer, actually a number of summers in Pentwater, Michigan, and had gotten a job up there and stayed at family's house. And one summer, a sailboat just kind of appeared on the beach where we were, and that's a whole nother long story. And I'd gotten permission. I didn't just steal it, but just kind of started taking it out on the water. Really had I can't explain how much I had no idea what I was doing. And so in every way was self-taught, and got myself into some pretty bad situations, actually. Sailors will tell you that knots are important, and that was particularly important with this sailboat. There was one knot that that you would tie, and it basically held everything together. And I didn't often tie that well, and so the whole thing would like fall apart. And I don't know that you want me to get into a long story about that, but my favorite time to go sailing was actually when a storm would be coming in, because it was like the best wind.
Oh yeah.
But super foolish. So yeah, I just got myself into a lot of probably not great situations. But I don't know if you want some backstory there. What was kind of interesting at that time in my life was I was pretty lonely, kind of like a lot of college students, was just really trying to figure out what the purpose of my life was, or if there was any purpose to my life. And so I just found myself alone and walking a beach, and I don't really know how to explain this, but just going out on that sailboat and being able to be active, trying to figure something out. And I think just making use of like basic elements, the water, wind, and really as much as I could have understood then, just praying, just asking God a lot of questions about life. Yeah. And so sailing was kind of the backdrop of just struggle.
Yeah. Yeah, that's interesting you bring that up. Was that a time you could kind of just get by yourself and just spend that time one-on-one with God? Is that?
Yeah, I wish I could say that was by choice.
Sure.
It was just what I had.
Yeah.
I was by myself.
Yeah.
So all I had was God.
Yeah.
It was weird. Later in life, I really missed those times. I can't say that was the case during that time.
Yeah.
It was just pretty lonely.
Yeah.
Kind of wanted to have, I would have been foolish and just want a girlfriend or something, but yeah, just somebody to share life with, so we prayed a lot, asked God a lot about why we were where we were, and kind of what was ahead. Yeah.
Dude, that's awesome. That I know I might be getting ahead of myself with this, but I know you often go to like the sailboat to spend time by yourself nowadays.
Oh, right.
Is that sort of like a recall, like back to that time, or just like that's still the only place where you can get by yourself?
I didn't know we were going to get therapy today. I had never thought about that. I honestly hadn't thought about that. In a different way. Life is a lot fuller now, and there are a lot of people in it, and a lot of people with a lot of needs. And so today, the sailboat's but so more than others. So sailing is two places. One, it's a place that I get to invite people to go and experience something that I think is just amazing when we actually take the boat out. But you also know that it's a place that I just go and stay the night and kind of have a little retreat by myself.
Yeah. Wait, do you spend the night on the sailboat? Did I understand that right?
That's my favorite, yeah.
Really?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. There's a little cabin underneath, so it sleeps 4.
Oh, how big is this thing?
It's 23 and a half feet long. So sailors always round up, so it's 24 feet long.
Okay.
It sounds like Matt, you need to go on a boat sometime.
Yeah, let's go.
Yeah, I would love to. I've heard legends for years.
It's fun.
Yeah. Okay, so that gives me a better idea. I think I had in my head like kind of just like a tiny little boat with the. So yeah.
How? So the first one that you were on, I guess normally they're named. So was there a name for it?
Yeah, so it was Grandma's boat. Again, there's a story about how she acquired that. There was another guy on the beach, older man, and they were trying to be helpful in his life and had gotten him this boat, which was supposed to be more safe. But it actually, so it was a laser. I don't know if I said that. And lasers are amazing. You know, they've got a similar size of what, I don't know if anybody knows what like a sunfish is, but it's a boat that you kind of learn on.
Can I ask a question?
Yeah,
real quick?
please.
When you're talking about this, is this a class? Is this a brand?
Yeah. So again, I'm going to prove some of my ignorance with sailing because
Okay.
not only was I self-taught then, but in many ways, I still I've never really actually been excited about some of the more technical aspects of sailing.
Nothing wrong
I
with
just
that.
like experiencing.
Sure.
It.
Yeah.
But lasers are a class,
Okay.
and a brand, I would think.
Okay.
So people, I don't know how much now, but they would race them.
Oh, okay.
And you are wise in not only that, you know, so like sunfishes, I think that's what we call them, are similar.
Okay.
So lasers are really sleek. They've got just so much sail, and they just rip. But they're not super stable.
Oh.
You know, they're not meant to be.
Okay.
So, and like a sunfish or something, you know, there's maybe like a little well you can sit in, but you're basically just sitting on top of it.
Oh.
So they're pretty
Okay.
tippy, and so like, you know, if you get yourself into a situation, it'll tip over and turtle.
Okay.
And yeah.
Okay. So you weren't just learning from scratch. You were learning from scratch on something that was actually fairly difficult to control.
Yeah. And,
Okay.
but really fun.
So it was like when you go, you sink, type of.
Well, there was no sinking, just
not, but
just-
like
yeah.
figuratively.
Yeah. So if you know these types of boats, there'll be a center board that is not attached. You just kind of put it down, and there's like a rudder that also kind of clips in. And it was not uncommon for me to get this thing flipped over and have the center board floating one direction and the rudder heading the other, and me having to choose which one I was going to go after. Yeah, there were some pretty just dumb moves. Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Wow. Oh my goodness. What like I mean that must have been really scary in the moment, but like what
It should have been, but no, it was just fun.
Were you much more of just like we're sending this and like didn't have a care, or like
I've never understood that. I've always been kind of a cautious person, you know, especially as a parent, but no, in that realm. And I think that's part of what I like about sailing. I just feel really free on the water. Yeah.
Okay.
It's interesting what age does though, right? Because like the more I look back on any of these things, even with my current boat, there's just things I think, oh, that was pretty dumb. I'm never going to do that again. So yeah.
Okay. So there's a lot of lessons learned over the years with practically how to use it, and it sounds like some life lessons too along the way.
Yeah.
So was there a particular person that helped you along, that pushed you or inspired you or any way, or was this really just self-discovery from the get-go?
So that's what's weird too, right? Because when I was a kid, so sailing was big in my mom's family.
Okay.
My grandfather apparently liked sailing, liked the idea of sailing. He's since passed, so there's no concern about him listening to this, but they often criticize him for his lack of knowledge in sailing.
Oh.
And that it wasn't fun sailing with him. So I think the family had like a fraught relationship with sailing. So
fascinating.
when I was a kid, there was this like waterlogged, kind of rotten sunfish that occasionally like my mom would take. So I remember would take out. And so I remember as a kid like being like she took me out in it, and there was a little like you could sense a glimmer of a passion, but it was also like this like trauma memory that the whole family had. Of,
gosh.
I mean, not in a bad way, just they just you know when
A little hesitant.
well, you know, like sometimes when parents are stressed, they yell, you know. And so everybody had kind of that experience with dad, you know. So so in a weird way, I think I had a little bit of exposure, but no, for the most part, it was like my experience was just solitary. I didn't have anybody show it to me, teach me.
Yeah.
That would have been fun.
Yeah. Is that how do I put this? I don't know if a regret is the right word, but would you have preferred? Would you do it the same way, or would you have preferred to have somebody with you?
Because I've thought about that a lot. I actually think about that a lot with other realms, like in campus ministry. There's so much like teaching people how to do things, but there's also so much that's significant about self-discovery.
Yeah.
And no, I wouldn't trade it. I realized that my path took longer.
Sure.
You know, it was, and this is like pre-internet, right? So you couldn't just Google things,
Yeah.
which probably was a blessing in some ways. Yeah. But yeah, I remember like, I think later in life, somebody got me like a book on sailing, and I mean, I've been, you know, messing around for years. I remember realizing like, oh, like that's how that works. You know, when you experience something just from, or when you learn something from experience, you only know like cause and effect. You just don't understand the mechanics.
Right.
You know the how, not exactly like the why to it type of.
Yeah, and sometimes you don't even know the how.
Fair enough. Yeah.
You just know enough to, move forward.
Well, kind of circling back on that, you had mentioned the knot. Was that something like? This is kind of really specific, but how did that process? Like you said, there was some struggle getting this knot to work just right.
Sure.
Was that something you figured out later how to do? How did that?
Yeah, I mean,
Something
pain's a
specific
good
like that.
teacher, right? So
Sure.
when you experience something once and it's painful, like maybe you learn. If you experience something twice and it's painful, hopefully you learn. Sometimes, you know, just like how many times are you willing to endure the same thing and just even if it's just to feel like an idiot. So no, I can't say that I learned a better knot. I think I just tied more of them.
Oh, okay.
I just was like, this is like not going to be a problem.
Not gonna be around.
Oh, there you go.
Sorry, couldn't resist.
So
By the way, any sailor listening to this would be cringing right now. Like that's just what you do. Like it's 101 in sailing is learn good knots and learn different types of knots.
Yeah.
Yeah. But I mean, that's kind of what I love about this, though. Like it's awesome to hear your experience and to have jumped into something that I imagine is decently complex as sailboating. You mentioned before the internet age, my generation would have 1,000 YouTube videos that they could actually probably decently learn how to do something.
Sure.
You're just out there figuring it out. So I think that's commendable. Like that's really impressive.
that takes a lot of time and dedication to do. But it sounded like you also just had a bunch of time when you were out there to just like do that.
That's all
So-
I had was time. Yeah.
Was that like, say that boat wasn't there on that beach, would you think you would still be doing this today?
Oh, no way. Yeah, not at all. Like I had never thought like, oh, I want to go sailing. As a matter of fact, while it was on the beach, I remember like it took a lot of boredom to drive me to that.
Okay.
Yeah.
Really?
Oh yeah, 100%.
Was it like you were like staring at it like I don't wanna or like
okay, so I can actually explain this in a different way. So that was boat one, but it wasn't really because it wasn't mine.
Yeah.
And later that boat went away for different reasons. But years later, I bought my first boat, and I was so excited. And I, like any good father, was hopeful to make this like a family experience.
Sure.
And I completely underestimated how much the rest of my family did not want that experience.
Oh,
and it was even worse when they actually had the opportunity to have that experience, right? Because, you know, like it's one thing to get others involved. It's another thing for them to be involved and think, yeah, I really didn't enjoy that and don't want to do it again.
Yeah.
And my kids would say like that, you know, they would contrast the sailboat that I had, because later I had a 19-foot Lightning sailboat. And they would say, we want to go on Grandpa's boat, right? Because Grandpa has a power boat. And there's always an assumption about a power, right? Because with a power boat, you can go faster. You can get places, you don't have to, it's just not slow, right? Like everything with a sailboat is slow.
Sure.
And, you know, with Grandpa's boat, you can put you can tube with Grandpa. You know, there's all these things you can do, right? And so, no, like I would have been right there with them when I was younger in college. Like the last thing I want is to go slow on this sailboat.
Yeah. It's cool that you have the empathy for their experience with where you started. What was it that took you then? You said it took a lot of boredom. So how did that drive you towards sailing? Maybe I'm asking a redundant question here.
No, you're good. And you know, I don't know how far we want to go down this, but just that was a really fundamental time for me in my formation, right? So just, and I know I've already communicated this, but just being lonely and just kind of wrestling with my own self-identity, you know, who I was. And so it wasn't just boredom. It was being alone with your thoughts, right? And having no outlet to do anything. I mean, how many times can I just walk? And we didn't, like, you know, pre-internet age, right? Like, like I didn't have as many things I could numb out with.
Yeah. No, that's
you
real.
know, TV was there, movies were there. I could go rent videos, but you know, you do that for 2 hours, and now what?
Yeah.
So no, it was just something to learn to do. You know, there was some curiosity there. Sure.
Yeah. Okay.
So you mentioned your first boat. It was a 19-foot Fisher, you said?
It was a Lightning.
Lightning.
It was older than me.
Okay.
1963.
So yeah, tell me a little bit about this boat. Like, what led you there? How'd you get it? Like,
yeah. So I've thought about the conversation we would have, and every question you ask, I could definitely give a longer answer than probably everyone would want to listen to. But I'll try and make this brief. So through a weird series of events, I ended up building a house. Okay. And I'm not
casually?
a person. Yeah, I know. So
as you do.
But it's actually probably similar to sailing, right? Like my family needed a home, and our resources were fixed, and so all things kind of led to maybe building a home. And I lacked experience, but Joe Wilson, I don't know if you'll ever hear this, but an amazing man who mentored me and was very kind and generous with his time. Mm-hmm. And so I built that home with Ezra Brink and Stephen Allen helped me with that, and some others. But basically, when I was finished building that, you know, I don't know, I was left kind of a different person and was wrestling with what was next. And I foolishly thought that I would build a boat. I'd been in California, and there was a parent of a student that I was doing a wedding for, and he had, I can't remember if I think he had built a boat. And so I was looking at doing the same, but I had this foolish idea that I would build 3 boats. You know, I'd build one and sell it, build another and sell it, build another and sell it, and like get to this place where the boat that I actually wanted. Except the boat I actually wanted, or at least that size, I found for at the time was $500, including the trailer on Craigslist.
Whoa!
And that sounded a lot better than building 3 boats. It was, you know, like 15 years later. So yeah.
Do you mind if I ask what year this was?
Oh, what year was it? It would have been 2005, probably.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay.
And interestingly, the boat that I found was actually in Pentwater, where I grew up, and it's been sailing that first one. So it was,
no way.
there was kind of some irony in all that.
Yeah.
And you know, I don't want to beat my wife in a poor light here. Like, I didn't need her permission, but I felt the need because we'd just gone through so much to build this house, and the last thing she needed with 2 young children was for me to grab a hobby that took me away from home. So I asked her what she thought about that, and she said, "Yeah, go get it." And yeah, so my father-in-law Phil and I drove up and looked at this boat and brought it back. In hindsight, the boat was holding the trailer together. Once we took it off the trailer, it kind of fell apart, and we got another trailer. And
wow,
yeah,
goodness,
fun little purchase. Yep.
Did you keep the trailer? Like how much did you have to fix on this thing at that point? Because
actually, like that actually sounds like a chaotic story.
The boat was fine, but the trailer was a mess. So we got another trailer. I guess I don't know why I told you that. Just everything about kind of the journey kind of had some challenges. Yeah.
Sounds memorable.
Yeah.
If nothing else. Yeah.
I know on at least your current boat, you do a lot of like fixing up, like repairs, upkeep, upgrades. How much did you, if any, did you do on that first one?
Very little. I've never actually enjoyed that part. I've always just wanted to sail. That's changed a little bit with the current boat. I co-own it with Robert, and he pushes me in all the best ways. We've unofficially designated him our safety, or our actually, what did we call him? Safety coordinator or something like that.
There you go.
Yeah, no, I just wanted to get the thing out in the water. That was my one
Okay,
desire.
Yeah.
You said you comb it?
No.
What did you say?
Co-own?
Co-own.
Co-own.
Sorry.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay. I thought this was like some technique
That would
that
be
I've never heard
exciting.
of.
I comb the boat.
Yeah, I co-own
Co-own
my
the
current boat with
Very cool.
with another guy. Yeah.
Okay. So yeah, how did that come to be?
Yeah. How did that come to be? So, I had always had what I thought was an unreachable dream to own a larger boat that you would kind of keep in a slip. The first boat I bought, you call it stepping the mast. It's basically you've got to put the mast up, and it took minimum of I think an hour would be on the short end, probably 2 hours just to put the thing together, and the same to take it down. And so yeah, this thought of having a larger boat that we could keep in a slip and just go and take people out on it. But that also meant being on a larger lake, Lake Michigan,
Sure. Yeah.
and things that were just kind of out of reach in terms of my experience, but also kind of maybe a price point or
Sure.
So yeah, had met he had already graduated, but was part of the ministry we were part of. And years previous, we had kind of made a joke that maybe one day we would own a boat together. And so the opportunity for that came back around years later. We have a mutual friend that actually owned this boat. Shout out to Eric Dush and his friendship and generosity. He really wanted me to own that boat.
Aw.
And
Awesome.
there's again some longer backstory and kind of how that came into our possession, but
Yeah.
You want to hit up on that a little? Yeah.
yeah,
I'm curious.
we were in a weird time as a family. We had to sell our home and get rid of our possessions. There was some health issues in our family that kind of created a little mini. Well, it wasn't mini, but for us a crisis, and
Sure.
so we're kind of at a low point in terms of just our bandwidth and our ability to make decisions and even our finances. And it was right at that time that my friend Eric said, "Hey, I'm ready to sell my boat."
Oh gosh.
And I was like, "You jerk. Like, this is just not the best time for that." And one of the few times that I've shown restraint, I chose not to tell my wife because she was going through so much herself, and I thought I don't need to bother her with this. So I just kind of in myself made a decision that dream would die. And I had reached out to Robert and I said, "Look, I can't own this boat, but we had talked about owning it together. And so if you want to buy it, feel free." And he said, "Actually, I'm in the same spot." He said,
wow.
He said he had met a young woman that he'd been on like a couple of dates with, and he said, he said, "Weirdly, I think we might have a future together, but it's a little early to ask her how she feels about owning a boat." And
Yeah.
so we're both like very clear, like death of a dream. We're not going to own the boat. Let it go. And then so I think I must have just like leaked that out to my wife, and she's like, "Well, we should go look at it," which was a little weird because I'd been sailing it. I didn't need to look at it. I'd been on it many times. And Robert said the same thing. He says, let's go take it out. And I thought, you guys are jerks. Like like if a dream is dead, just let it die. Like don't make it more painful.
Dangle it in front of you.
Yeah. So we went out on this boat, and as we're driving home, my wife goes, "I really think you should own this boat."
Really?
And I was like, "We can't afford to." And then my friend Robert called me and he said, "Hey, so here's the deal." He says, I'm in no position to own a sailboat. And I'm like thinking, right, like we've been very clear about
Establish
this.
that type of.
And he said, so here's the deal. I'm going to put up, half the money for us for you to buy it, and I'll pay half of what it'll cost to keep it. And he says, then you'll own a boat. And I was thinking, you don't really understand how this works. So, Robert really caught not just a vision for the boat, but all along, I think we'd been talking about what you do with the boat,
Right.
And the things that we'd learn. And I would use the word ministry or discipleship, but just the ways that I think God uses close proximity to others. So I feel like I'm just kind of riffing here, but
Yeah, that's okay.
basically the first boat, it was really interesting because God taught me so much through that. Like one of the things that would happen would be, when you have a boat, like especially a sailboat, like you really can't go out by yourself. And so it's kind of a weird situation because you bought this thing that you can't use unless others join you.
Huh.
And so it's communal by nature.
Yeah.
Yep.
I love that.
And then the other thing is that like you can't really schedule anything. I mean, you don't know other people's schedules.
Sure.
You don't know the weather. Like
Right.
you're at the whim of just whatever happens. And so you're constantly kind of putting feelers out like, hey, like, you know, I might take the boat out tonight, or I might take it out Tuesday. Would you like to come? And so it's like everything is just kind of spontaneity. And even when you would go out, right, like you just really don't know how, especially that boat I owned before, because I didn't have a motor on it, like you really didn't know how long you'd be out. So we would end up with the most unlikely groups of people on it. I mean, just
Really?
gender, race, religious background, like we just would be the most random groups of people. And I remember I would fret over that. I mean, I remember like driving and thinking, I hope these people enjoy their time with each other.
Yeah.
But it was always amazing, you know, as we would listen to each other's stories and ironically often get to talk about and think about our creation by God and just his story and our story. And just I love that probably more than the sailing.
Yeah. Yeah. I love that you take this physical thing that you have brought, that you have history with, and that you have this like kind of growing up with story, and then using it for more intentional purpose, something to connect with those people and to have that really intentional, meaningful. I love what you said about it forcing community. That is so cool when that happens. I think in a lot of people's, a lot of things that people chase, a lot of people try to chase things alone. And I really believe that's to our detriment. And so I don't know. That's really encouraging that you see the value in this activity, forcing these situations that just become really meaningful and bring unlikely groups of people together. Do you have a particular story of one of those instances that really 100%. Stood out to you?
Yeah, early on, we labeled these guys Big Ali and Little Ali because they're both named Ali, and one was big and one was not as big. And two friends of mine, they're both from Saudi Arabia, and
Wow.
And Emily, forgive me because I don't know that my memory is right on exactly who was on the boat. I just remember they were, Dale might have been as well. I don't recall. And I remember we were just this unlikely group on the boat, and just the conversations we got into. But the fun thing was my I had a hat that I liked that the wind grabbed. And it just kind of like, was gone.
Yeah.
And before I knew it, Little Ali had jumped into the water to chase after it.
Oh my goodness.
Whoa.
Yeah, and I was thinking like, man, like there were just so many emotions because I thought like I want that hat, but not that much, What
Was this on Lake Michigan?
No, this was on Gull Lake.
Oh, okay.
But I do remember
Okay.
thinking like,
Well,
do
you
you
can see
have?
the bottom there at least?
But I remember thinking because like, do you have any knowledge of swimming? Like, I wasn't sure if this was like if we were in danger at that point.
Yeah.
It was, and then that was just a shared experience,
Yeah.
and forever, endeared us to each other. Like, hey,
Right.
thanks for saving my hat,
Aw.
But no, just it was great to, and probably foundational in our relationship with each other. We became good friends, and I think the boat, or at least that experience, was part of that. Yeah.
Yeah.
I know. So you mentioned like how I love how you do use that, like Matt said, to like bring like force community get together in a way. I know because sailing happens a lot like during the summer and stuff, and a lot of campus ministry happens during like the school year, which is like the fall time. So it's like sort of like opposite. If you were to be able to like sail more during the school year, is that something you think you would lean into, like have a lot more students out there all the time for like ministry opportunity, or
Yeah, that's a really good question. So I never thought of this, but I really think about seasons, and not even like the natural seasons, but just like life seasons.
okay.
And so as much as I like what you're saying, like, if we lived farther south which my wife would definitely prefer. Like if we were in Florida, right? Like, I
Yeah.
could sail all,
Yeah.
all throughout the year, so that would look different. But no, actually, it's brought some seasonality in life that I think has been quite helpful.
Okay.
And actually the contrast I think has been quite helpful. So, like there's still students around. There's still people that I mean, what's more interesting is I usually meet people through sailing rather than going with people I already know.
Okay.
So,
really?
Oh yeah. And that's actually what's most fun for me. You just and sometimes like I'll just meet somebody randomly and I try not to be weird about it, but it'll come up that I sail or have a boat, and so then I'll just say like who should come with, and
Right.
and so I've really tried to lean into that kind of earlier concept of like, and maybe there's just like kind of a backdrop here of to me sailing is like the best illustration of life. There's so many life lessons in sailing that mimic the way I think life is meant to be experienced.
Are there like some examples of that?
Oh yeah, and we'd have to have 4 more podcasts, but
Do I hear spin-off series?
yeah, right. So the basic is probably found in that contrast that I mentioned before between a powerboat and a sailboat. So most of us want to think that life is powerboating, right? Like, because it's the way that we think, it's the way our culture is in the West. We're very individualistic, and we like to be able to operate on our own power. But here's the irony, and totally throwing shade on my dad. So sorry, Dad, if you listen to this. I told you that my kids would complain. They'd say, when I asked them if they wanted to go boating, they wouldn't even say yes or no. They would just say, we want to go on Grandpa's boat. And it was even worse than like a no.
Sure.
Like, not only do you not want to go on my boat, you're telling me what you do want, which isn't what I'm offering.
Sure.
Yeah.
But here's the funny thing. They rarely actually got to go on my dad's boat.
Really?
Yeah, because my dad would bring his boat down, and we'd plan these big days that we're going to go out and have a lot of fun, and the motor wouldn't work. And so nobody would go out.
Oh my gosh.
And so whenever they'd say we want to go on Grandpa's boat, I'd say, well, how's that going for you? I said, guess what? We can actually go on my boat. And so I think the life principle there is we would all prefer to do something that we have control over, and we can do it what we want to think is going to be a rapid pace. But the reality is, most times it's more like what I told you, where I'm walking a beach lonely than actually doing the thing that I think I'm going to make happen.
Right.
And so sailing to me has always been a more honest way of life. Like, so here's the thing about sailing. You may actually have a place or a direction you want to go, but you really are at the whim of the wind, right?
Right.
So there's 270 degrees of sail. There's 90 degrees that you can't sail. You can't sail into the wind.
Oh.
Ironically, you can sail the other 270 degrees.
Okay.
Not at the same speed, not in the same way. Totally depends. And so, and forgive me if I've gotten too far off track, but basically, you just never really know what you're going to get. You just know that you will have the opportunity to move.
Yeah.
And you're going to be limited to kind of the experience that God brings for you.
Right.
So I don't know if can I actually like give you a metaphor?
Yeah, go ahead.
So if anybody's familiar with Christianity, there are some metaphors that the early Christians thought of for themselves. There's this ichthus. Do you know what that is?
No, go ahead.
The ichthus, the like Jesus fish thing.
Oh.
Sometimes people would put it on the back of their car.
Oh, sure, yeah.
It's the like stick figure
Yeah.
fish. Well, my understanding is the early church often thought of itself in terms of a sailboat or a boat. And you can think about it. You've got, when you're looking at a boat, you've got the mast and you've got the cross section, or on a current one, you still have that cross section. And it looks like a cross, right? So you've got this critical center, which is, the cross, which represents Jesus. But you're also in this thing together, right? Like you're your ability to get from point A to point B is going to be reliant on you working together, but you also can't go anywhere, right? You're in there together.
Right.
And you may know that you have a point B. You might even think it is the point B that you chose.
Yeah.
But your ability to get there is fully reliant on the wind. And we think of the wind within Christianity, that's a metaphor for the Holy Spirit.
Sure.
And so I think so much of what I experience in sailing is so much of what I think God teaches us in the way like of life, right?
Yeah.
Like every morning you wake up and you want to be a powerboat person, right? Like you want to think, I'm going there, I'm going to be there by 1. This is exactly how it's going to go. But that's not ever how your day goes.
Right.
Your day goes the way your day is going to go.
Yeah.
And I think God's often crashing into our world and saying, do you notice me?
Yeah.
Do you recognize that I have a plan? And are you going to lean into that? And are you going to operate on your strength, right? Like your motor that may or may not be working today, or are you going to lean into the wind that I've provided?
Yeah.
At the pace I've provided, right?
Wow.
So I want to be more like that, but my nature is not that,
Right.
Like I like efficiency.
Mm-hmm.
I like the things that I want to get done in the time frame I want to get them done.
Yep.
And I'm pretty selfish, and I have a pleasure center that I like to please. You know, so there you go.
Yeah. Wow. that actually really hit home.
Yeah. No, that was holy cow.
Yeah. I think, and Ben, this is really encouraging. I don't mean to like bring attention to your age or anything, but a lot of us are in, I think, the stage
Dude, I
of
just
life.
found out that I'm eligible for an AARP card.
Ayo!
I didn't even think that was possible because I just hit 50 this August. Apparently,
Oh, really?
50 is the line.
50 is.
It's
Yeah.
not 55.
No.
When my dad
No, I-
turned 50, yeah.
Yeah, I
got
got it in the mail, and I was like, no, wrong.
That's funny.
No,
That's funny.
I might have to get one.
Anyway, going back to that, I really appreciate. I think we're both of us are in a very similar stage.
You're 52.
Yeah, no. Oh my gosh.
the period of life you're talking about, or in just dealing with like loneliness and change and things like that. And so to hear from your example from where you are now looking back is really encouraging to me. Struggling with a lot of these things in my own life, and to
so
not
you
powerboat.
So you want to be a sailor too? I heard it. Let's go.
I'm game.
I say you just got to get in the boat.
Just
That's all he
gotta
needs to
get
do.
in the boat.
We're all going to go for a sailing trip after this is what I'm hearing.
I'm down in November.
I think, did you? Oh. So, okay. How, like, I know you get the boat in the summer and then you take it out like sometime around now. Like, what is the determining factor around all of that?
Yeah, when it goes in, when it comes out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Because that's always confused me. People are like, yeah, we're just taking our boat out now. And I'm like, why now? Why now when it's like almost winter?
Yeah, there's a lot of arbitrary things that go into that. Like sometimes it's just when the marina opens or shuts, and it's really personal preference. So the crowd I run in, which I don't know if Robert and I would be aligned to this, but like Eric Dush, the guy who owned the boat, like that crowd is like, take it out as late as possible. Like you get angry if your boat is out and you get a nice day, like because you think, well, like we could have been out. So no, we ideally around October 15th is when they come out, but sometimes we live on borrowed time.
I love that.
And I think you can get them in April. Lake Michigan's too cold. We did have one summer that a guy from Japan, Karaoke, made me promise to take him out before he went back to Japan, like at the beginning of May. So we made sure to get the boat in early that year.
Wow.
And he wanted to get in the water, and I was like, do you realize how cold this is right now? And I'll never forget, he says, this is going to be my only chance.
Wow.
And I thought, go you.
Yeah.
It wasn't until we got back that I looked up like how cold that water was, and I thought that wasn't very smart.
Oh gosh, I would believe it that time of year.
Yellow. Oh goodness.
So okay, your kids you mentioned, obviously when they were younger, wanted to go like on the powerboat and stuff. And I know like obviously Lydia, she's in college right now, and Minna is in high school, and Hailey is out.
Yeah,
and
everybody else
Noah's out,
graduated.
yeah.
Yeah.
So okay, so they're older.
Yeah.
What's like the preference now? Do they want to? Do they want to learn it? Is that something you'd want to teach them now?
It's
or?
complicated. So Lyd loves it whenever she's able to get on. Noah, I think, enjoys it, but it's always situational. Hailey's just natural tendency is he's a powerboat guy, but he's willing to hang out with Dad. But like once Minna refuses, I probably gave her some bad experiences.
Oh no!
No, how? What?
She went on some of the first times we took that boat out that probably weren't the smartest on my part. The time that we were out in some really big waves and she was crying.
Oh gosh.
How old was she at the time?
Oh gosh, I don't know. 5 years ago,
Oh,
so maybe
okay.
10.
Okay.
Yeah. So I've promised her, we can take her out on days that she'll enjoy more. But yeah, that's probably not her preference.
That's fair. That's fair. One more follow-up question.
Yeah.
You had mentioned a little bit that you had considered building a boat.
Yeah.
Is that something you ever want to dabble with? Or
Okay, so sometimes I think about like if you could have, so there are character qualities of God that I actually, they're the only two that actually sometimes like honestly just kind of make me angry that we don't have, or that I don't have.
okay.
And one is, that we're limited, just being limited by time.
Oh, sure.
And being limited by space.
Yeah.
And so I have this kind of like this exercise that it's just kind of like a game I just play with myself. And one is like that I would create alternate me and just like spin off right now. And this is the life I would live.
Sure.
But that would be one of them. Like I would love that.
Yeah.
But I don't with my current life desire that at all.
Yeah.
The time it would take and the things it would take from other things. And who knows, maybe someday, but
Okay.
Sorry, you can buy a boat so much cheaper.
Yeah.
And
like you said earlier, you enjoy the act of boating as opposed to the
no. And you could put all that time and money in it and like still not have something like you want. I mean, like, no. I would like something that exists that I know is won't leak.
That's just all part of the experience, Ben. You're just having an experience.
I know. Robert probably would. I'll have to ask him that. See, we're such a good match. I'll have to ask him if he'd ever want to build a boat.
All right.
That'd be fun.
Yeah.
So like even if you didn't like build a boat, like I know on this one, like you upgrade a lot, and you said Robert's a lot of the driving force behind that.
Yeah. Sorry, I'll let you answer.
No. I guess like, is that like maybe if you didn't like build one, do you want to like take that one and upgrade it to a point that it would like become bigger or better, or I don't know.
Yeah, we'll see. So sometimes I like to equate the boat that we have as like grandpa's pop-up camp, used pop-up camper that you ended up with. And like the next move from here would be like the equivalent of getting into the used RV. It's a pretty big step up.
Okay.
Just a few feet, you get into like a very different game in terms of just what you have, what it takes to make it work, the time involved, the cost. And so yeah, we've kind of decided to stay here for now. And there are a lot of factors in that. We'll see.
Okay.
But yeah, Robert's amazing. I'm probably uncomfortable saying this because it'll sound like I'm being negative toward him, and I don't mean to. And maybe it's just me revealing my selfishness. There are times where, especially when I was younger and more immature, where when I would see somebody, I might think, I just don't know how well we're going to get along. Because you tend to think that you do get along with people that are like you, right? Like you have that kind of natural connection.
Yeah.
So I think I wondered earlier what life would look like for he and I to do this together. And it's funny because I was so foolish. Like he's just good at so many things that I'm not. It's really fun because we'll problem solve, and like guaranteed one of us sees things correctly and the other one doesn't.
Gosh.
So we've kind of naturally learned over time which one of us should lead at which time and the other one should like follow. And so when there are things that get more technical, he definitely gets to be in the driver's seat.
Okay.
Gotcha. I love that you recognize that in each other, though. I think that's so foundational for a relationship to, like, I mean, that takes some humility to put those things aside and be like, okay, I recognize your strengths here. I recognize that those aren't my strengths.
Yeah.
And actually feed into a way that actually complements each other. That's awesome.
His wife is often around, and you can see her just laughing at just watching us. So it doesn't look as good as you think it does. It's usually us like being awkward with each other for far too long until one of us just kind of shuts up and lets the other one drive.
Oh, all right. Well, we're starting to run low on time here, so we're going to throw it over to a fun little segment called Overrated, Underrated, and we're going to let our producer, Matt Bell, take it away.
Hello. So we're just going to do a little bit of game of, I got 2 questions, and you're just going to answer if it's overrated or underrated and kind of give your reasoning for that. So our first question, and Ben, I'll give it to you to answer first, is a college education overrated or still essential for success?
Oh, now you changed the question. Is it overrated or essential for success, or is it overrated or underrated?
So, like, is college education overrated or underrated?
Yeah.
And then, like, amended onto that.
Dude, and me first?
Yes, you first.
I struggle with that so much, right? Because there's a growing body of data that points in 2 directions on that. Culturally, it's gotten weird, right? Because we think, everybody kept saying for so long that you need a college degree, which is so not true. And right, like the last, I don't know, probably ever since COVID or whatever, increasingly people are finding that, man, you can find so many good ways in life without one. The trades are huge. There's just so many paths a person can take. But I believe all data still points to the fact that with a college degree, people's earning potential is higher over time. But that's just, that's money. I guess money may matter, but it's only money. I again press into both directions. I think having an experience in college, I think there's a lot of potential for personal growth and some of the places that puts you. I'm a little narrow focused. Working in campus ministry, I just see the potential in so many realms, right? Like for young people. I just sound so old when I said that. For 18 to 23-year-olds in their self-development. I mean, there's just such a critical time.
Yeah.
But also in terms of being outward focused, right? Like being willing to grow in, benefiting and being generous and being others focused with your peers. Like there's so much potential both in terms of self growth, but also in terms of in Christianity, I guess we would call this ministry or just being able to live out what God has for us. It's not that can't be done outside of college. It's just, I think the path sometimes can be challenging. Commuters even will recognize just the and it's not that you were promised something by just going to college. I mean, everybody's experienced this to some degree right now, but it can be such a solitary experience.
Yeah.
Is it worth paying that money to have that? I don't know. That's between you and your parents and Jesus, I guess, to figure out.
Okay. Well, Joel, do you have anything you would like to
hard to
say?
follow that up.
I was going to say,
sorry.
That
was great.
I say just to preface as well, we all have at least experience in college, having degrees or very close to degrees.
I think there's a bit of a difference between somebody who can have an ARP card now, and somebody who is. Hey, you're about to come out. When he said 23, I'm about to turn 24.
Nice. Getting old.
No, I'm sort of torn. I have quite a few friends that I know from high school that went straight into the trades and made a ton of money. And I think in reference back to like my passion with woodworking, there was a time where I debated making that into a full-time job. And I know a ton of people that can just make buku bucks off of it, and that's just what they enjoy doing. And I think I regret not doing that in some ways sometimes. But at the same time, like I don't think I would trade my degree that I'm in right now. I very much so feel like this is where the Lord wants me. So I think it depends on where God wants you in life. As far as the money goes, oh gosh, it is so overrated. Oh my gosh,
Yeah.
student debt is real, and I hate it.
Yeah. If I can piggyback off that, so as the resident last minute dropout, and I won't go to that. We talked about that briefly in episode 1, but having gone through most of college and then an internship that wasn't financially feasible at the time, and so that degree still hasn't technically happened. So, but I am very grateful to have landed a job that I am loving right now, and I'm getting a lot of experience. They've been very, very good to me. So I think a couple points that you guys already brought up were just absolutely true. That one, God directs your paths. So was college a waste? I don't think so. For one, I wouldn't have met any of you, and that
is true.
Like the community aspect of that, and getting to grow, going back to what you said, in being such a developmental time of our lives, I think that was wildly valuable. Was it worth $30,000
per year?
Oh, gosh. Yeah, I'm not sure, but yeah, so it's if people ask me, they're like, "You're not using your was that a waste of your time?" And I'm like, "No, I learned to be a better musician. I learned some critical skills, and I learned to the therapy end of music therapy, learn to empathize with different people groups that I never would have thought to before." So, is college overrated? I'm gonna say it is a little overrated because of the way it's pushed on people as a need to.
Yeah.
So I'll say it's a little overrated, but definitely I think a worthwhile experience. So,
Yeah, I would definitely tend to agree with you. It's overrated for the fact that it's very pushed on a lot of high schoolers that you will be going into college, that you will be doing this.
Yeah.
When a lot of people don't necessarily need to. That's not what they're passionate about.
Right.
What they're passionate about is not necessarily connected with college.
Yeah.
And that's a struggle for me as a professor, because I want everybody to go to college.
Right.
And so it's one of those weird things that, yes, it's overrated for the fact that not everybody needs to go, but like all of you have said, it's so incredibly important.
Yeah.
So.
All right. Well, thanks for playing, guys.
Yeah.
We hope to do some more of these segments in the future. That was actually pretty deep for our first one.
Yeah. No. I want to thank you first off, Ben, for
thank you.
being our first guest, for coming on and going through this ride and experience, and thank you for sharing your passions and wisdom and knowledge in just those areas.
Yeah.
It was really awesome, I want to say.
Thanks for inviting me.
Absolutely.
Let's go sailing.
Let's go sailing.
Yes.
We're all going sailing.
We're going to be hard at work picking out our guest for next month. So when you all hear it, that will be early January. We're trying to settle into a release schedule of the first Wednesday of every month.
Yes.
So stay tuned for that. But yeah, in the meantime, hope you all have a very Merry Christmas. And a Merry Christmas to everybody when you hear this. And I would like to thank everyone just for taking the time to listen today. And thank you again, Ben, just for coming on the podcast. A huge shout out to you and taking the time out of your busy schedule to come here and do that. Yeah.
And I hope that everyone found this as interesting as we did. And we'll catch you in the next one.
42 North is produced by Matt Bell, distributed on Podbean, and our intro-outro music is created by Jake Chandler.
Oh, loins.